So, for those of you that actually do follow me, the few, the proud, the Joe's Corner followers, you know that I get after Manila Times for being pro China. And for the last 6 years, Manila Times, especially people like Roberto Tiglo, they have done everything they can to advocate why the Philippine government should turn into the Chinese government. They've done everything they could to say that China should just take whatever sea they want, do whatever they want. But now sometimes the chickens come home to roost, and your stupidity comes back to bite you. There's been reports around the road lately of Chinese police stations worldwide, and these police stations have been problematic, but it's nothing new here in the Philippines, so we're going to get into it. In the past week, alarm reports have emerged about the presence of these Chinese police cities in Europe, with one outpost being discovered in Hungarian capital Budapest and other in Amsterdam and Netherlands. These, however, are just the tip of the iceberg, according to a report by the Spain-based NGO Safeguard Defenders, right? So they say at least 54 have been found overseas in service centers, appeared in the last 21, or appears to be in 21 countries around the world. So far, these extra territorial police outposts are known to be present in the Philippines. So they're saying they haven't found it, but it's not totally true. We're going to get into that in just a little bit, but they have found other things that have just been equally just as bad, right? So the reports involved are so disturbing, however, that our government must take immediate steps, even though you asked the government here in the Philippines for 6 years just to totally get on their knees and submit to China. The Overseas Police Service Centers are a program run by the Public Security Bureau of the different cities from China, which I don't give a crap who it's run by. It's Chinese. Shouldn't be making rules in foreign governments or ignoring their laws, saying that their laws are more important than whatever country they're in. It was created to fight crime, essentially, various forms of telecommunication fraud, but it's not true. What they mean by telecommunication fraud is that somebody might click a like on a post that's talking bad about Xi. So somebody might say, hey, look, President Xi looks like Winnie the Pooh. Chinese citizen clicks like. Next thing you know, they got a couple of Chinese officials knocking on the door overseas saying if you don't come back and face these criminal charges that are so horrific, that we're going to lock up your mother, father, your brother, whoever they could find to torture. So they're going to threaten worse crimes against you than you are of them. That's what they're doing. So this main function is to track alleged fugitives and suspects of crimes in China, which is not totally true all the time, right? There are some criminals that go overseas, they do try to hide, that maybe have committed real crimes. So what they're saying is, well, we do this to track the crimes, but then they turn around and say that these outposts, talking about some in New York, were just give out driver's license per se. They were just there to help them with paperwork, which is not true at all. So the main function, however, is to track these fugitives in China, use the means to circumvent host countries' legal systems to persuade them to return, like I just noticed. Reports said that 230,000 people have been arrested in this fashion between April 21st and 22nd of July, major of them Southeast Asian. The Spanish newspaper corroborates some of the reports and they're saying that Europe is just so cumbersome in paperwork that China feels that they have to do this, right? These countries and cities where the Chinese police outposts were identified, including New York City, Toronto, Canada, Ares, Argentina, and I'll show you the map later, some of the ones that they found. The overseas police stations are often embedded in local Chinese community associations, the NGO report said. It's also pointed out it's likely that there is more existence that it could be identified in open source information. The NGO report offered critical observation. These operations ensure official bilateral police and judicial cooperation and violate international rule of law. Now, damn right they do. So a paper for the last 6 years is all of a sudden say, well, we might have a problem. Well, here in the Philippines, they've had, especially since the coronavirus broke out, illegal hospitals operating here in the Philippines. They don't have a license for it. They don't have the proper identifications, the certifications, and they're just for Chinese. So they were maybe operating in, quiet places. They didn't have any signs out, and the Chinese would come there for hospital stuff instead of going to the proper people who are properly trained, because they feel that this is more important than following actual laws of the country. So it has been a problematic for the last few years that there's been health facilities, illegal hospitals, secret clinics here in the Philippines that have been operating. And when the Philippine government does find them, they do shut them down, they do get arrested, and they do deport it, right? Cops raid secret hospital, legal hospital patients. These are all different stories in different hospitals. This is not the same stories. There's been quite a few of them over, the times here. And so China and the Philippines too, and other countries, they don't exactly operate within laws. They don't feel the laws are them. You can go into Africa and you can find a bunch of horror stories about them illegally mining, about them illegally stealing stuff, and trying to, take some of the trade stuff that they find and send it back, not paying. They don't feel that laws apply to them. Now, especially here in the Philippines, a Chinese contractor was nabbed for alleged sex offenses, accused of ignoring environmental. I know Mayor Isco, I did a story about him. He went over, and a Chinese contractor kicked out Filipinos from their own home. They were poor. He wrecked their place, and he started building. He tore up the road, and Mayor Isco got word of it, and he went haywire on him. I mean, he was pissed, and he should have been pissed, right? So, yeah, they don't exactly operate to any kind of laws in foreign countries. They feel that their Chinese laws are more important than everybody else's, right? And so a couple years ago, literally, they were talking about operating police Chinese desk here in the Philippines, and there was a lot of bad talk about that, saying that maybe this is not a good idea. Then this worry here was why this is their fear here. They were feared that the Chinese would start running it and it become police stations here in the Philippines. And that's what the Filipinos' concerns were, right? And when you read all kinds of articles about it, you find that the concerns were legitimate, that we shouldn't have been doing this. This is what it could turn into, okay? And, and I talk about the map of different police stations found. Cambodia, Japan, Mongolia, Turkmenistan, Tunisia, all these different countries, Argentina, New York or Canada was found, and Netherlands. But what makes it so bad sometimes is it's not just the grand scale of things. It could be how Chinese act on a little scale of things, like here in the Philippines too, and other countries. Vietnamese rescued from abusive Chinese employer. Authorities rescued a Vietnamese woman who was suffered from abuse from her Chinese national employer. And you can see where they were whipping her with a phone cord. And according to the consul's report, on Thursday, a Chinese national was seen video repeatedly hit the 26-year-old woman using a wire and cell phone charge inside a condominium unit in the city. The victim tried to protect herself with a pillow as she was hit in the face, body, and thigh. In other video, a suspect also hit the Vietnamese while lying on a sofa. One woman was seen watching. The victim was tied up, grabbed, and pushed. The Southern Police District Special Operation intervened and rescued the victim. They arrested 2 Chinese nationals who were inside the condominium during the operation. According to the police, the victim used to work in Dubai. She was maltreated when she expressed her desire to return there. And she had, her look was, but they say that in the Philippines a lot, you're going to hear the term pitiful look. It doesn't mean what you might think is slain means. It just means that she was very sad, looked abused. Just her situation was not healthy. That's what they mean. You're going to hear that quite a bit, that your look was pitiful. Don't take that offensive in the Philippines. It just means something a little bit differently, right? And the suspicions have been charged of serious legal detention, physical injury, and lacks of lasciviousness. And apparently they're trying to get her to do sex acts too, which, and it's just horrible. Horrible the way they treated her, right? So, we get into the sinister purposes of these. Like I said, when service stations have been set up around the road, they're labeled, found. What happens is like I was talking about earlier, they try to pressure a Chinese citizen to come back by holding their family hostage in China, locking them up, doing whatever. But it just doesn't stop there, right? And we're going to get into what happened in Manchester when there were Hong Kong protesting in front of the Chinese embassy. What the Chinese diplomat did was actually an act of war. So when you are an embassy, that's supposed to be your solid ground, right? That is your flag that raises there, okay? And what this Chinese diplomat did was pull a Hong Kong protester inside the gates and started beating, right? So a Chinese diplomat who was filmed pulling the hair of a Hong Kong pro-democracy protester on the grounds of a consulate in Manchester, England, has defended his actions, saying it was his duty to maintain Chinese integrity. That's what I'm talking about. Every single Chinese consulate, diplomat, embassy feels that their laws have to be maintained by any means necessary, including violence. That if you protest in front of their embassy, that this is the treatment they're saying, this is their duty. This is what they have to do. Any diplomat would have done the same in the Chinese consulate, said on Wednesday when asked about the video footage emerged. Now, personally, England should shut down the embassy there. England should have kicked them out. It is an act of war. Whether you like to hear it or not, once inside the embassy, you drag a protester inside your grounds, you're kidnapping through the Chinese flag. That's what you're doing, using a Chinese flag to legally kidnap somebody even 2 inches inside your gate and beating them, right? Now, if they step outside the gate and beating them, they should have been arrested for assault. That's the big difference. What they did was they committed an act of war. The confirmation took place on Sunday, talk about the video footage, and it just got out of hand. And you just don't do stuff like that. So, however, the Sky News interviewer asked about the image showing him pulling seemed involved, saying, yeah, the man abused my country, my leader. I think it's my duty to pull his hair, the interviewer asked. He added that when he maintained the dignity of China, his people, that any diplomat would have done the same. And that's a shame that he would say something like that. This is not China. This is UK. Hong Kong pro-democracy activists say feared he would be killed when he was beaten by Beijing thugs during a Chinese consulate in Manchester. Right? So, yeah, we have a serious problem with China acting stupid worldwide. We can get into how they're acting on vacation, destroying things, especially in Southeast Asia, destroying ancient temples, statues. We could talk about how they're acting in Africa with illegal mining, how they're not building things properly. The Road to China initiative, where they're building all these infrastructures. Sometimes it don't turn out. Like some of the power plants in Africa don't work, right? And so they don't build properly because they're contracted to build these things by the government. Well, the contractor steals a lot of money, doesn't put everything he can into the institution, like when he's building the infrastructure. And so he steals, he takes money, the infrastructure ain't built right. And what happens is the government who contracted with China still owes China. And that's a big problem, this Road to Initiative with China, Belt and Road Initiative, right? And so we have serious problems with China acting the way they're acting. And UK government must demand a full apology from the Chinese ambassador. This person was right? But you're not going to get it. You're going to get the typical Chinese answer, like, this is our duty, tough crap. That's what they're going to say. So every country out there is going to have some serious stuff to think about when it comes to Chinese government. And part of the problem was years ago when, especially in America, we decided it was a good thing to get rid of all the jobs in America and help create the homeless problem, help create family problems and all this other wonderful stuff that we did. When we sent all our factories over to China, we made a mistake. It was stupid. It was stupid then. People were calling out saying it was stupid. But it just wasn't America. It was Canada, UK. Everybody was sending overseas, right? And so we have a problem with China not obeying nations' laws. They don't obey the laws in the Philippines. They just view the sea as theirs. The same thing with Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos. Everywhere through there, China has just wreaked havoc. They don't care about you, your nation, or your laws, but they sit there and say, you must respect ours. So the Philippine government, the American government, South America here, Europe, Africa, Southeast Asia, even Australia, Australia is another problem that you could talk about, especially with their colleges and Chinese influence there, right, where they're paying money to colleges, and colleges were not doing the things they were supposed to be doing. Let's just say that. So anyway, welcome to Joe's Corner. Thank you for watching. Hopefully this will be an education purposes for you so you can understand the full situation that's going on with China worldwide right now, and it's very problematic with their people and how they're acting. their abuses, and it just needs to stop. And in my personal opinion, I think the airports need to start closing to China. That's just my personal. If they're not going to act right, they're going to have to leave. That's just the way it is.